Andy Lou. How you doing, man?
Let's roll. What are we doing?
September 14th. We're getting closer and closer. Less than 3 weeks to camp starting. NFL season started. We're getting there. It's getting pretty close.
I saw JTA and Ken Bazemore working out at the Warriors facility or something like that. So yes, we are getting closer to something. Oh,
did you see that? It's
praying.
I'll pull up the image, but they have their names on the lockers, which clearly means they're going to be on the team next year, right?
Yeah. Did they never take those names off? Is that what happened? They just kept those names there because they're such great Warriors.
Forever Warriors.
Yeah.
It would be this is how you know they're getting into like late stage dynasty where they're just we know that guy, bring him back.
I mean, Brandon Crawford is still on my team, stinking it up. So after all these years, 2023, so what do we got here? Yeah. People who are listening audio can't see, but we've got a picture of the Warriors locker room with their names on. Literally Kent Bazemore right there.
Juan Toscano Anderson right in between. Yeah. Pajemski, Steph, Wiggs.
Yeah.
Wow. I hate to burst anyone's bubble who thinks this means they're officially Warriors, but Travion Williams had his name up on one in camp last year too. So
Travion Williams, wow, a Warriors great trade. That is Trace Jackson Davis is the new Travion Williams. I can't wait. I can't.
God, remember when Travion just was dropping dimes in a summer league game? I go into the Light Years Discord. People are like lying about it was Jokic light. I'm just like, come on, guys.
We got another one. We got another one.
We do.
On a flight. I saw him on. By the way, I saw those guys on a flight to Vegas.
Who'd you see on a flight to Vegas?
So Moses Moody was sitting on mine. And then the G League guy or the rookie guys were on another one because my buddies were on that one. And
which rookie guys?
The only two that the Warriors have, Trace Jackson Davis and Pajemski. So they were all on the same flight together. I felt bad though. Moses Moody was sitting like 2 rows in front of me. You know what I mean? I'm flying coach, right? So I'm sitting there in the back, and Moses Moody is just chilling.
First class on Southwest?
United, same thing. So maybe not.
Okay,
but I mean, he could sit with some leg room. The kid's like 6'6", right, or whatever he is. And I don't know. I felt bad. He could get a bigger flight. Guy was a lottery pick. Felt bad for him, or he
hasn't signed that second contract. He's trying to keep it frugal right now. He's like, hey man, when Joey Lightyears gives me 9 figures, then I'll spring for what Jet Suite X, that.
Jet Suite, those private jet. Nobody knew him. Nobody on the flight said anything to Moses Moody, so he's got maybe after next year he'll get some notoriety. But
I wonder if no one knew him or if it's what most people do, which is like kind of shy.
I think as a player, you're probably, I don't know. Moses Moody probably doesn't get love. Like Steph, obviously, like people will be like, "Oh my God, it's Steph." But I wonder
if Moses, a global superstar. It's a different level.
I wonder if Moses Moody is like, I do want people to, come up and say what's up to me because he's still a new basketball player. Maybe he likes the fame, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like Wiggins probably doesn't want people to talk to him at all.
It's cool when it's everyone. My assumption. I'm going to relate it to when you and I go to Chase Center. It's cool when people do it and it's not your everyday. It would be really obnoxious if you couldn't go to the grocery store because people wanted to talk to you all the time. So, yeah, Moses Moody's probably in that tier where, every now and then someone will. Yeah, exactly.
He's in our tier.
He's basically intern Neil. By the way, shout out our guy Neil. I don't know if he wants to say it, but Neil going back to school. Moving to New York, going to be up watching the Warriors at 1 a.m. in ungodly hours. Going to need the East Coast report from Neil about just how miserable his life is trying to watch games at 11, midnight, 1 a.m., that sort of stuff.
I've never done that. My buddy who lived in New York for over a decade was in med school, said he missed like 80% of the Warriors games. He's super happy now. He gets to watch all the Giants, although I don't know if you're happy about watching the Giants, but he gets to watch all the Giants and Warriors games now for the first time since we've been in college together. So, well, congrats, Neil. You're a lot smarter than I am. Go crush it.
It's just hard, man. It's just hard. You know what I'm saying? Like you say you want to stay up and then it's Tuesday, November 23rd. And the Orlando Magic are rolling into Oracle. You're like, I'm just gonna go to bed. Yeah, it's too much.
Although Orlando Magic, we'll talk about.
In a couple minutes. You like that segue?
Very nice.
The Orlando Magic might not be that unwatchable this year.
Okay.
Dun dun dun. So our guy, our friend Adam Mares over at DNVR threw up this topic on his show. I want to say today. He's talking about went full hipster with his side piece teams for 2023-24. I feel like this is just your league pass rankings.
Sure.
Is basically what you're getting at.
Sure.
His list was number 5, the Brooklyn Nets, 4, the Pacers, 3, the Magic, 2, the Timberwolves, 1, the Thunder. Yeah, this is essentially the new league pass rankings. I don't know. When I say what's your favorite league pass team, what do you think of?
I think of teams exactly like this, right? You and I are going to both have league pass, right? We're going to watch other games because we have nothing else to do. I don't go out.
Yeah, but it's like, I feel like a league pass team, like the defining thing is like, they're not going to be on TNT every Thursday. They got to be
Warriors, Lakers.
It's not the Lakers.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the Knicks. I don't know why.
I mean, well, they are a lot,
Yeah.
but we
Nuggets,
also wouldn't want to watch
Nuggets
them.
Yeah. It's basically, they're not contendery enough to get on TNT and ESPN all the time, but they're worth watching.
I mean, there's a picture of Franz Wagner. He is the epitome of a side piece league pass team. I mean, they just won the FIBA World Cup, but that's the guy that I think most hipster NBA fans, hardcore NBA fans, would probably watch Franz Wagner more than like Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, I bet you they would.
I mean, this is my wheelhouse. Hipster teams. This is honestly, at certain points in the season, I'm more into watching the hipster teams than I am into watching the Warriors. Like, I don't need to watch Draymond and Clay and Steph half-ass it because they're 500 years old, when I could turn on the Oklahoma City Thunder, who play every game like it matters because they don't have room for error. So I feel like that's the general idea. So why don't we talk through it real quick? Who are your league pass teams? Like, who are the teams you're going to be when the Warriors aren't playing? You'll be watching them on league pass.
So he's right. I mean, I'm going to go quickly through these because we're not going to do these one by one, but I've got the Thunder as my one. I've said that a few times already. Mm-hmm. Orlando Magic, I'm with you on the Franz Wagner stuff. I'm with him there. Pacers, he threw that out there. Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, like, that's fun. I don't know how fun they'll be. So like, they're my third one. And then I just
competing for it. Yeah.
They don't have enough guys, though, like outside of Halliburton, that makes me super, super locked in. So that's why they're kind of in my second tier of league pass. Mm-hmm. And then I got the Magic. I'm with him, Banchero, Franz. The one that I differ, though, saying that I'm really locked into this season is obviously the Spurs with Wemby, but the Cavs are up there. So for me, Evan Mobley is someone that I want to watch this season. It's a year where he has to take a leap. I was not that impressed with him, especially in the postseason.
Have some self-respect. Absolutely no Cleveland.
I know.
And I don't care. I don't care if they have the Monstars.
Dude, you look disgusted. You look absolutely disgusted. But if the guy is going to take a leap to be a superstar, that's the guy. I already love Darius Garland. You know that. Donnie Mitchell's fine. But Evan Mobley's the guy that can he become a superstar big? Is he the next superstar big? There's a chance for him to be better than Jaren Jackson Jr., who I also love. But I think Jaren Jackson's kind of at that point where it's like, is he plateauing? Because is he just not ever going to be able to stay on the floor? Evan Mobley might end up being better than him, probably will end up being better than him. And this is the season to do it, I think. I'll be watching a lot of Cavs games.
It's disgusting. I can't watch the Cavs. I can't endorse it. Their backcourt is basically just Dame and CJ. Darius Garland, wildly overrated by hipsters. Whoa! In the playoffs, you saw exactly how good he is. He's just a midget who gets picked on. Donovan Mitchell has been overrated for years. Cool. He scores close to 30. He'll never win anything of substance. I'm out on them. Evan Mobley is talented, and I don't really understand why he wasn't on Team USA. He hits the sweet spot of young guy, up and coming. I would have thought he'd be there over like Walker Kessler or Bobby Portis. Maybe there was some politics involved there. Who knows? But I do agree with you. I would not be surprised if he's better than Jaren Jackson in like as close as 2 to 3 years, right? Like, doesn't even be that far out. To the league pass team. So we have agreement on the Thunder, the Magic, and the Pacers. Those three I agree with. The other ones I want to call out, I'm going to throw the Sacramento Kings on there. Do they still count? I know they're a playoff team. I know they got some national games, but it's not like they're going to be on ESPN 20 times. I think they're mostly an NBA TV team. I still think outside of the Warriors, they're probably going to be the best watch of the Pacific time zone. So there'll be a lot of like, it's 9 at night. The Kings are playing.
Yep.
And the Blazers are playing. And easy choice, which of the two teams I'm going to watch, right?
It's 126 to 120 end of the third quarter. You know, that's the Kings. It's fun.
I might go wild card here and say the Houston Rockets.
Dude. Oh, fuck.
All right,
give it to me. Give me the argument.
So obviously KPJ is gone from the NBA for eternity.
Yes.
So that alone, just if we're talking basketball, makes them more watchable.
I like it. Okay, I like this.
Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, I think will make them a little more watchable. I think Ime Udoka. Here's my thing with the Spurs. They're going to be load managing Wemby, and I'm not convinced they're going to be as watchable as you think they are. I think it's going to be a lot of BS where Wemby plays 51 games and they're essentially tanking for a second year to try to get a second guy with him. Whereas I know Houston wants to make progress, and I kind of like some of their younger guys. So I'm intrigued by it. I just think Ime Udoka is the type of coach who gets his team to play really, really hard. They got a couple veterans. Whatever you think of Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, they play some facsimile of winning basketball. They defend, they give a shit in ways that team didn't last year. Amen Thompson is might be the most exciting rookie. I might say he's going to be the most exciting rookie this year because I just think Wemby, they're going to load manage him, and it's going to be kind of disappointing. And then I think Jalen Green will probably take it. He either takes a step or he gets traded. Şengün, you know that's my guy from the hipster standpoint. So I'm buying Houston being not playing good, but maybe what Orlando was last year, where you're like, hey, these guys put on a show. Every one of these games will be entertaining.
I cannot argue against the bulk quantity of names and things that could happen for the Houston Rockets. I cannot argue against that. The only thing I can give you is Wemby because, like you say, he might play 55 to 60 games. I just never seen him play. That's it. That's the only argument for it. I've just never seen him play. I will be locked in. I was watching his summer league game like it was the freaking Super Bowl, right? So that's it.
I do. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a lie. If I hear he's playing and the game is semi-competitive, I will flip the channel to watch it. I'm just projecting. I anticipate not watching a lot of Spurs because I think they're going to do their Spursy thing.
Devin Vassell, I love me some Devin Vassell.
That's our guy.
Yeah. So, Tim's team sucks, right? Like if they had gotten Fred VanVleet, maybe the Spurs had gotten him.
We can add Vassell to the list of guys they should have took over Big Jimmy. Honestly, probably still would have been like, we should have took Halliburton instead of him or LaMelo.
Yeah, but it's fine. Would have lived with Vassell.
But at least he's a guy can play on your wing for the next decade and be pretty good.
Yeah, so now you got two Moses Moody's. You know what I mean? Like or two Vassells, whatever. It would have been fun. But the Houston Rockets, I think
more
the
Mikal
one thing
Bridges-ish than Moody,
God,
but same idea.
God, I wish. The thing with the Rockets is just I think they're gonna hate each other like 20 games in. It's just it's just Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green wants to average 28 points on shit efficiency, right? Şengün probably wants to be a Jokic. Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks don't make teammates better. They're more just guys. They're more just vets. Like they may be good locker room, sort of. Is Dylan Brooks a good locker room guy? But they don't make anyone better around them. Amen Thompson might be the best.
I'm on the Dylan Brooks redemption tour.
Yeah.
I think the Grizzlies are a clown show and they made him the fall guy. And that's not to say he doesn't have flaws, but you're blaming Dylan Brooks because Jaren Jackson can't stay out of foul trouble because Ja Morant can't stop pulling guns out for no reason. Like what are we doing here? It's not Dylan Brooks' fault that like your core did not do its job.
Yeah.
It'd be like the Celtics blaming like Marcus Smart or it's just like
he's gone.
Well, they need to shake it up one. At least theirs was like, let's try something different basketball wise.
Yeah. Good luck, Boston. Good luck.
Yeah, it is what it is. We got a special guest this week. Everyone's favorite insider, Tommy Gunn. Tommy, what's up, bro?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on. It's been a while. Hot start to the podcast, by the way. Sam's comparing you guys to Moses Moody, talking about side pieces.
Yeah,
wow,
we're locked in, man. What else are we gonna talk about? You know what I mean?
You guys, you did forget one side piece team though. One league pass.
Let's hear it.
The Pistons. Come on, man. I'm gonna be locked in. I'm gonna be locked into Detroit Pistons games from the beginning of the season.
Which reason? Give us the reason. Give us the reason.
One, Mr. James Wiseman.
Oh,
bench
one,
watch?
Mr. James Wiseman.
But no, actually,
over under 15 minutes a game.
For the season, under. No way he's over by the end of the season. I think Monty will put up with Weaver's request for the beginning of the season, but they have too many young guys and especially young bigs that they need to get minutes to that are actually good. Like obviously Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, they got good players up front.
Yeah, I was going to go the opposite. I feel like there's a chance he sneaks over 15 minutes a game at the end of the season if they're way out of it and they start resting guys like Isaiah Stewart, he might get some of those 30-minute just go run out there.
Just go run out there. But isn't the real argument Cade Cunningham, though? If you were actually going to make an argument, right? Because he's, I mean, maybe you could argue he should have been on Team USA. And maybe he's a next star.
Amin's brother.
Asar is fun.
Ivy.
Love Duren. Ivy, iffy on. We'll see.
We'll find out.
But yeah, they actually do have some fun players. But I was,
Duren's the one where I'm like, I wish the Warriors could have got him.
Man.
Like that's a Warriors big right there.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
any big is a Warriors big. That's not.
Well, apparently not any. But anyway, all right. Speaking of one who is, Draymond's on his propaganda tour right now. Nice little ESPN piece there. Let's pull up the video real quick. This was my favorite part.
And I'll be straight up about it. Like, my goal this year is to help Chris Paul get his first championship. That's my goal. It's not to redeem anything about Draymond. My goal,
we know that.
We can help Chris Paul get his first championship.
Shades of Kobe telling Dwight Howard, let me teach you how to win, Dwight. Let me teach you how to win.
It's so perfect. It's so perfect. It's like, you need us to get this done. You can't do it on your own. You need us.
He's saying all the right things. Where are you in terms of buying it back into Draymond? Because there was a lot of things that went on last year, but undeniably, like, the punch led to a lot of locker room friction. Obviously, Jordan Poole, you could say at a certain point, you got to get over it. And in his case, he's like, no, I'm just going to continue to kind of hold this over everyone's head. He ends up getting gone. All right, he's gone. You won, Draymond, new season. So how much you buying in?
I was never out. I was out for maybe 72 hours after the video surfaced, from training camp last year. It's just like, okay, again, we're really doing this again. But it wasn't, I've seen practice fights. That's obviously, it was a pretty extreme version of that, but it's nothing I hadn't seen before. And like, obviously it's not what you want, but guys can get over that. And Poole clearly didn't want to, as you said, just fine. So he's gone, but I was never out on Draymond. Look, I'm one of the preeminent Draymond fans online. I think he's one of the most underrated players ever. And obviously none of the Warriors dynasty happens without him. So as long as he's healthy and as long as he's moving near the way he was last year, because I think he actually had a pretty underrated season. He helped keep them afloat. It was him and Clay really keeping them afloat while Steph was out multiple times last year. And last year with him off the floor, the defense was god awful. I want to say it was a bottom 5 defense in the league with him off the floor. And then with him on, they were right around top 7, top 8. So if he's still that same guy, they're going to win a lot of games again.
I think one thing in the quote that he mentions is that he doesn't feel like he has to redeem himself, which I think is they're screwed if that's true, because he's the leader of the team. I agree with everything you're saying on the court, but if he's not going to be a leader off the court on this team with Chris Paul, it's just not going to work. And if he's just going to keep up being the Draymond of the last few years, we'll see. I'm the pessimistic one right now because I don't believe that Draymond is a great leader at this point in his career, and I don't think it's going to fit with Chris Paul. But that quote is hilarious. I mean, part of it's funny, but part of it's like, Draymond, you do got to redeem yourself. It's like, dude,
I'll make the optimist take.
Yeah.
They built a roster that matches Steph, Clay, and Draymond's personality more so. What I'm getting at is it's not as young as it was last year. How many times did Dunleavy say, you could say we were maybe too young last year? It's like, no shit, Mike, but so there's that. You bring in vets like GP2, awesome locker room guy. Dario Saric fits right into what they're doing. He knows how to play basketball. By all accounts, great locker room guy. You got, you got guys like Bazemore and Juan working out with them. I do think one of those final roster spots will end up going to a, let's just say a locker room guy in that capacity. Corey Joseph, veteran. And then the rookies they brought in, we'll see if they can make an impact or not, but they both kind of are more of the Moses Moody personality type than the Jonathan Kuminga, Jordan Poole, I want to be the man type of veteran rookie. So a lot of this stuff kind of points to, if you're putting him on a team with more veterans, maybe he's less likely to eventually freak out. Because you could say what you want about Draymond, but that guy's too competitive and he just loses his patience with guys who aren't on his level competitive wise. And that's usually when the bad stuff happens, when he loses his mind and that sort of thing. And so the one guy I did not mention is the one guy he was talking about, Chris Paul. I feel like the biggest question for me this season, and this is our Warriors question of the episode, will Draymond make it coexist with CP3? Because that's the relationship. I can see that going either way. It either works perfectly and they sprint out of the gates and Warriors are back and they get under everyone's skin and we all know how that plays out. Or, I don't think he'll punch Chris Paul, or if he does punch Chris Paul, I don't think Chris Paul will lay down the way Jordan Poole did. But I could see that relationship not working and it being just kind of crappy to watch all year.
I mean, it make or breaks the season, right? That relationship right there. That dynamic is going to make or break the season. I think, and this is me being an optimist, I think they can be mature enough to make it work. Could be wrong, because I can easily see it going the other direction. But I think CP wants to win a championship bad enough, and he probably knows this is quite possibly his last realistic chance at doing so, unless he's just going to go play somewhere on a veteran minimum, the Lakers, which is possible, I guess. But I think they both want this to work bad enough that it will. But also, I think the start of the season is so important, just like it was 2 years ago. Right. Sam, you're pointing to bringing in more veteran guys to help with the leadership stuff. That's what they did 2 years ago. So all that leadership, all the responsibility of that isn't on just the core three. That was part of the issue last year. They had to both lead and take everything on the floor as well. They're not going to have to do that this year. So you take some of that leadership load off of Draymond off the floor. He can more focus on playing. And if you get off to a good start, I think they'll be top 3 seed, very, very similar to 2021, 2022.
Yeah. I'll also throw into this the Chris Paul malcontent, kind of ruining the locker room thing. It's always like year 2, year 3. Every team he goes to is always good year 1. There's the buy-in, and then, Chris wants to run the show his own way, and, James Harden rolls his eyes, Blake Griffin rolls his eyes, whoever it may be, it ends up, even in Phoenix, you saw it at the end of the day, guys like Devin Booker and Kevin Durant preferred to not play with him. So I'm optimistic on the year 1 bump and worry about if you want to bring him back next year, next summer.
Giannis is going to be there. Look, man, I think there's only two things that can happen in my mind. I think they're either going to be this team is going to be a championship team. We'll know it in 10 games because they're just perfect for each other and they're just fighting. They're just fire, right? It's just fire. Everybody loves it. They're all locked in. They're winning games, or they are so fucked. And they got to trade, and they just got to trade Chris Paul within 15. You just know right off the bat. It's nope. This isn't going to work. He's done. Russell Westbrook type. He's got to be out of here, or we're not going to even make the playoffs. I think those are the only. There's going to be no. They win 45 games like last year, and they're kind of like maybe we're good enough to win, but we're probably not good enough to win. And Chris Paul's just kind of sitting here, kind of awkward, kind of like Jordan Poole.
What if we try Moses Moody at center? Maybe that'll unlock everything.
Exactly. He's a new Josh Hart. What the fuck are we doing here? Like, I don't think that's going to happen, right? He's gone. They've got to get rid of his ass. And honestly, I would probably blame Draymond for that because he deserves it. He's done enough damage. So I think that would be the reason, or they're just perfect for each other because they're both assholes and they both got fiery tempers. And I would love that to happen. But I think it's only two options, man. I don't think we're getting the middle.
The one thing we haven't really discussed all off season is their basketball fit. It's in my opinion, it's going to be super dependent on who the three players around them are on the court. Because Draymond, like, the most underrated thing he does on offense is he gets you in transition incredibly fast. Chris Paul wants to walk the ball up the court, right? Draymond wants to keep the ball moving because he really has no half-court offensive game. Like, he doesn't have, a post move. He's not a jump shooter. Like, what's he really doing in that sort of situation? Chris Paul, opposite. I want to get in the pick and roll, operate out of the mid-range, have guys cutting off of me. I still think it can work, but it requires everyone else around them to be an elite shooter, which they have enough of, or like cutting aggressively. I don't know. It's a dicey fit. I kind of always assume part of the reason him coming off the bench is minimize the amount of time they're on the floor together. But how do you see it fitting?
I mean, realistically, I don't think you want them on the floor a ton together. Just because CP prefers a role man who can finish. This roster doesn't have a ton of that, but at least with Dario, he's a pick and pop threat. And if a guy closes out badly, he can attack it and get to the rim and make some plays. If it's Draymond, you're really just dependent on kind of the guard getting doubled, whether it's Steph coming off a pick and roll or Draymond setting a down screen for Clay. They dump it to Dre, and now he's playing 4-on-3. You're not going to get a ton of those scenarios with CP. You're going to see more bigs in drop coverage. So can they work together? Of course. They're both so smart that I think they can make it work. And I do think something that is underrated about CP, yes, he does want to walk the ball up, but he is a very good kick-ahead passer when he wants to be, when that's part of what his team is trying to do. So he'll advance the ball. He doesn't need to dribble it up because he's so smart. He's such a good passer. He will advance the ball up the floor, but at the end of the day, he wants to play towards the end of the shot clock. He wants to milk the possession for what it's worth, a lot like LeBron does now. They want to milk the possession down to 6-7 seconds and find the perfect shot. So it's definitely different.
And that's kind of the Warriors, glass half full. They're like, we didn't have this curveball to throw at teams last year. So we'll play our style, and when it doesn't work, we'll let Chris Paul slow it down a little bit. Always sounds easier in theory than in actuality because it requires him to not play to his first instinct off the bat.
If I have to watch Chris Paul pound the rock in a close game with Steph standing in the corner, I'll lose it. I will lose it. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. They'll be too small because they got 4 guards out there, and he'll be just pounding it, thinking he's New Orleans Pelicans Chris Paul out here just trying to shoot that little step back mid-range. And then when it works, I'll be so happy. I'll come on this show. I'll be like, yo, they got their guy. And yeah, it's just completely different brands. I think Steph wants that, though. That's the thing. I think that's the most important thing. I actually think Steph wants that. Outside of just Draymond and Chris Paul, yeah. I actually think Steph wants to stand in that corner sometimes and just go look, man, I don't want to run pick and roll again and again. And I don't want to play off ball and have Jordan Poole not pass the ball and turn it over. I just don't want that anymore. I'd rather have Chris Paul out there. I'm sure Clay, same thing. Clay's a terrible ball handler. I don't want him, doing his weird, kind of
he's pretty transparent about them needing a second guy who can create a shot. Yeah, and Clay, for all he does, that's not his game. Draymond, definitely not his game. And, when it was Kevin Durant, you're unbeatable. When it was Jordan Poole, it really depended which version of Poole you got. But when he was good, they won a title. It wasn't, it gets underrated even in the Boston series where his minutes got limited. There were some really crucial stretches where he held the offense afloat. And that's really all you need. Because if your offense is 48 minutes of Steph pick and roll, yeah, dude, he's 35. He'll be 36. His legs probably won't allow him to do that. So just letting someone else run some offense, to your point, Andy, and let him go stand in the corner for a couple of minutes, that's what helps you close a game out.
Yeah. So along the same lines, what do you think the best kind of bench unit around CP looks like? I'd assume Dario's out there, right? And then you kind of build around
Kuminga.
that. Yeah,
I
of
think-
course. And then is there enough secondary scoring kind of outside Steph and Clay? I guess in bench units and just in general with this team, are we depending on Moody and Kuminga taking a scoring leap? Because I think that's what it has to come down to, right?
I think so. One of Wiggins or Clay needs to run with the second unit. Probably Clay. Probably Clay gets pulled out early, and you put in either GP2 or Moses Moody with Steph and majority starters. And my ideal second unit would be CP, Clay, Moody, Kuminga, and Dario. You have enough length and versatility on the wing. You certainly have enough shooting. With Clay, you have someone who's comfortable being the first option of a second unit. And then Kuminga is your de facto roll man. In some ways, you might be running the pick and roll with Dario Saric, but that's where Kuminga getting better at cutting baseline and using his athleticism can really come into play, because CP3 will get him the ball if he gets to around the rim. And it's probably better for him because the high pick and roll offense is a little simpler than what the Warriors want to do with the first unit, kind of with ball movement and motion. That stuff's pretty complicated for someone like Kuminga to do at the speed that Steph claims.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to figure that out.
Even for Moody. It's complicated for Moody too. And Moody's a smart player, but he still has a tough time with it when he's out there with the starters.
Those two got to figure out defense, though. I'm less worried about it. Yeah, those two, if you're going to have those two next to Chris Paul and Clay and Saric, who isn't this great, especially not a great 5 defender. I mean, Kuminga's got to rebound, right? Moody's got to figure out on-ball, off-ball defense. Like, I love him. I think he's smart, but, like, he's got to figure – that's asking a lot. But, I mean, you're in year 3. I mean, you got to figure it out at some point, or you don't. And you're traded along with Chris Paul in the trade deadline. Like,
probably
figure it out.
Probably put in a lot on Chris Paul to, like, be the vocal leader of the second unit too. But maybe that's a way that makes him feel appreciated. You know, you get Fitz on the broadcast talking up Chris Paul carrying the load here, just the ultimate leader. So happy to have, like, you know how targeted they're going to be to try to make him feel like he's important because he's going to have to sacrifice ego. So
how disgusting is that 6th man of the year campaign going to be if they get off to like an 8-2 start? It's just going to be all time propaganda. It's going to be Fitz at his best.
I know we had Kevin Durant, but we never had a player like this, like that sort of stuff. That's what's, Bob is meant for this. It's going to be all, I'm curious to see how they word it, because the Warriors do this thing when they catch on to a phrase, everyone fucking repeats it nonstop. Like, remember, win now, develop now. I know how many times I had to hear that, and they, and then just lying about it, saying, "What are you talking about? We never said 2 timelines." So
Lacob lying about that was incredible. Just saying,
he's still doing it.
Wow, what a special.
Tim, I feel like you made that up. It sounds like a media creation. I was just like, that's
so good.
Yeah. And then, like, right now it's, I mean, how many different times have we heard the word optionality, right? Just optionality. It's like, just call Chris Paul an asset at this point.
I hate that word. I hate it. It's like an attempt to sound smart when it's just a normal phrase, when a normal word.
It's like, yeah, we get it. He's an expiring contract. You can move him if it doesn't work. Congratulations. It's not the first time that's existed in the history of the NBA.
Is there any chance CP's here beyond this season, regardless of what happens, even if they win the championship? Because he's still $30 million the next year. You think there's a chance he opts in and he just stays one more year on that same deal?
I think if they win the championship, they'll run it back. Whether they should or they shouldn't is a different question. But it's just, I've yet to see them let a key guy walk after winning a title, other than Otto, who was injured, but he wasn't Chris Paul. You know what I'm saying? I think they overrated how much their front 6 mattered relative to 7 and 8. 2 years in 2002, they won a title, but like, They'll try to run it back is my theory, unless they win a title with Chris Paul being completely like, wearing a boot on the sideline and he's not playing, in which case it's like,
how did they win that title?
We didn't really need you, right? So that'd be the only, but like, if it's like the perfect scenario, Chris Paul's playing and, he's the reason they won game 3 because he got hot on the mid range, that sort of thing, they'll bring it back. My theory is, they want to utilize his contract to keep themselves above the second apron. I think they're lying about wanting to get out of the second apron. I think the more you look at it, it's unclear how bad that punishment is for being up there. You can't use the mid-level exception. You already can't use it when you're above the tax. You can't do your draft pick 8 years out gets frozen. They don't want to trade their draft pick in 8 years anyway, because Steph will be 44 or something ridiculous like that. Like, most of those punishments are kind of.
But why are you saying they wouldn't? Why were you saying they would want to remain up there though? Like what?
To hold talent. Because
Yeah,
it's hard. Because if they let Chris Paul go, it doesn't open up a mid-level exception to him in all likelihood. They're still kind of like praying for a Dario Saric to take a vet minimum.
Well, they've never even used a tax. I mean, haven't since DeMarcus Cousins. I don't like they haven't.
I mean, they used it on Dante last year.
A little bit. It wasn't the full, right? It was just
still used it. So they couldn't have got him if they didn't use it. They used the other portion of it on Ryan Rollins, which was hilariously dumb. But
Warriors
they
legend.
did use it.
Warriors legend.
They did use it. I mean, they have a nice track record of using it poorly. I can agree with that.
They use it on Nick Young.
Yep. Another example of using it poorly.
Yeah.
So,
well, that one, they got a championship out of it. So,
he did hit a couple shots in
revisionist history.
Seven.
He was bad. He was bad.
Yeah.
Big shots too. Those were not small shots against Houston.
Correct.
I get. Yeah, okay, that worked. If your mid-level exception contributes in one key playoff game, that's good enough for me.
All that matters.
And you win a title. But that's my theory. And then the opposite side of that is, let's say the worst case scenario happens and everyone is washed and they know it's officially over. They can get out of all this and get under the tax, let Clay walk, let CP walk, and start playing for the lottery, which would be a very depressing outcome. Very depressing one. But I do think they like the option of using Chris Paul to potentially get a Brandon Ingram in a trade if they wanted to.
That's not happening anymore. That ship sailed this summer. That ship is gone after the.
He's all in, by the way. I know Sam is all in on Brandon Ingram.
Just give Steve more time with him.
Yeah.
We'll slowly get him there.
Give him time. Give Steve time.
Oh yeah. Anyway, my point is now I'm just going to use the word optionality, and it's disgusting. But I'm not convinced that if this team is playing well and they're very much legitimately a contender for next year, they're just going to let CP3 walk. They're going to use his contract to try to acquire talent because they have to. Yeah, and they're going to lie about it publicly because how many teams are annoyed with the Warriors for overspending, right?
I like that. That's a good point. Yeah.
So
good point.
Yeah. Oh, I never thought they'd just let him walk unless, like you said, everybody's done. I just meant like actually him being back. You know what I mean? I think it's a very small window where he's actually back with the team.
They have to win. They literally have to win it all. I think that's the only sin. Otherwise, let's say they get to the second round and lose, they're going to see what they can do with this contract to upgrade the roster because it's the only chip you have to do such a thing, right? So
it's a partial guarantee next year, right? Is that what it is?
No, it's zero guarantee.
It's zero.
Oh, okay.
It's hilarious.
It's a player option or a team option.
Team option.
I'd have to double check the date, but it's the like 28th or something of June, where it's kind of like, all right, if we can move him before that date, that other team can just waive him and get out of jail free card, and we take on whatever contract.
That's like 2 weeks after the finals, too. I mean, that's quick. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's a valuable trade piece to make an uneven financial trade is basically what it comes down to, right? So
it's a draft night thing.
It is a draft night thing, exactly. That's what the Wizards and the Beal trade was, right? They're like, all right, we're going to take Chris Paul, we're going to waive him and save money, and that's good enough for Bradley Beal. Instead, they were able to flip him and get a young player, which is probably what they wanted to do anyway. So, All right. Do we want to talk about this real quick? I feel like we buried the topic we wanted to get to. Let's do a couple minutes here. My one thing with Draymond, whether he redeems himself this year or it's over, I'm not into rewriting history on who he is as a defender, and that seems to be a popular narrative online. Not that important. Like, he's one of the 5 greatest defenders of all time. I don't really think it's disputable. You can tell me Rodman was better or Bill Russell was better. Fine. But you're not going to tell me he's not at the table of the best, 5 or so defenders of all time. And so it just got me thinking, obviously neither of us will say Bill Russell. We weren't alive in the 60s. that sort of thing. But like, who are the best defenders outside of Draymond, in your opinion, that you've seen with your own eyes?
Whew. All right, I can go first.
Why don't you go first, Andy?
Yeah, I'll go first. Couple criterias for me. Obviously, I have to have fucking watched them. Moments in the postseason. Have they had things that you remember in the postseason? Probably the NBA Finals. It probably should be. And then can they elevate a defense? Are they versatile enough to elevate a defense, right? Like, you can't just be an on-ball guy. Like, my big gripe with Anthony Edwards is like, everybody's like, oh, he's a great defender. It's like, dude, have you watched him play off-ball defense? He's freaking terrible. All right, guys, to me, Draymond Green, obviously number one for me. Then I'm going to go quickly down the list. Kawhi Leonard, easy one. Watch him guard LeBron, like huge. He's obviously not very good anymore, but Kawhi's up there for me. Tim Duncan is my favorite big of all time. I learned to love him, even though I hated him when I was a kid. Just anchored a defense for like 2 decades. Dwight Howard, underrated. Carried a team to the NBA Finals, dude. People make fun of him. Guys playing in Taiwan. Best defender I saw growing up, like the most fun guy that I watched playing defense just because he was so like cartoonishly big. That Orlando team like kind of was like a modern NBA team, but they were back in time 10, 15 years ago. And then I'll throw Ben Wallace in there. I was a little bit younger, but those Pistons teams, like I hated them. Now as I grow up, I'm like, oh, they were just really led by that defense, which was then led by Ben Wallace. So like those are my guys. I kept guards and wings off the list, just because I always feel like the bigs, when you're great, are going to affect games more. Like a guy I think about is like LeBron. I would probably throw in there as like another guy, but like these guys just led a defense regular season and postseason always.
Isn't even the case for LeBron. The best version
Small
of
ball
LeBron
Yep.
defensively was playing the Draymond role.
Yep.
So
and Miami. Yep. Thiago splitter block, right? Like that's like him. That's the moment, right? But those are my guys.
Yeah. You want to go, Tommy?
Yeah, sure. I think Draymond's definitely, if I'm going to kind of rank him, Draymond's definitely, and I wouldn't say definitely, but he's my favorite to watch just because of the versatility and just the way he directs the defense. And he's almost omniscient with the places that he'll just appear on the floor. He sees plays so far before they happen. He shuts off problems before they can even exist just because of the way he reads an offense and the way he reads offensive players. Duncan's a great shout, Andy. I think he has the most all defensive teams of all time.
Oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure. I think he has 15. I'm pretty sure that's the record. He doesn't have a defensive player of the year, which is crazy because the Spurs were, I want to say, a top 5 defense for every single year of his prime. And kind of similar to Draymond, and like not a crazy shot blocker necessarily, but like always in the right spot. And if you look at LeBron's kind of like worst finals, a lot of them came against the Spurs just because Duncan was always shutting off the rim. You know, he was always just kind of in the right spot. So LeBron didn't really see the driving lines that he likes to see. And I would have liked to see kind of an older version of LeBron against peak Duncan because their timelines didn't really match up. But still, I think that just goes to show how special Duncan was, that you can shut off probably the greatest rim threat of all time, or one of them at the very least. I think Garnett obviously deserves a shout. He spent a ton of time kind of like whittling away in Minnesota. And people like to say he was better than Duncan. I don't think that's necessarily true. But obviously super special defensive player. What the 08 Celtics did just in general, and then obviously against the Lakers really made Kobe just play basically an awful series, probably one of his worst series of all time from an efficiency standpoint. Who else? I think Giannis probably is. I don't know if he's there yet. But I think he's on that trajectory.
Giannis over AD, huh?
Oh, okay. If I'm doing him in order, AD over Giannis. I've always been AD over Giannis.
He's super temperamental and annoying, but AD at his best defensively can hold up against anyone.
We know what the Warriors. Yeah, we know what the Warriors' flaws were, and they really couldn't space the floor how they needed to in the playoffs. But when AD's locked in, it's really in this era, kind of post Duncan, it's him and Draymond. And I don't think Giannis is kind of like a distant third. I'd say, at least in terms of impact in a high level playoff game where you're shutting down basically everything that the other team wants to do. He's probably lost some quickness from his peak, but he still can slide with perimeter guys well enough. And then around the rim, it's just like when he's really, really locked in, you're not scoring. Like you're just not. My
other thing with AD, which is like makes him slightly better than Giannis for me, because ultimately I'd take Giannis over him because he's just such a more reliable all around player. But defensively, Giannis is just a little more robotic, whereas Anthony Davis has some of the greatest timing ever. He doesn't foul. Like, you get annoyed watching him, but I'm like, he didn't foul Steph. He didn't foul Clay. Like, he got it cleanly, and that type of timing. The one guy I would have said you hit on him is Kevin Garnett. I would say is probably my favorite defender outside of Draymond, like of a previous era. And I think I do rank KG better than Duncan. Not from a legacy standpoint, because Duncan's legacy is signed, sealed, delivered, and he deserves everything people say about him. But if you're asking me who do I think can be a more impactful defender across eras, peak Kevin Garnett would play more today than Duncan would. They both would play, just to be clear. But Garnett is a bigger Draymond, honestly. He's Draymond with Anthony Davis's physical tools defensively. Same type of fiery emotion, same insane IQ. I mean, they had him play the top of a 1-2-2 zone at times, and then have him anchor a defense as a small ball 5. I think he's just, from a talent standpoint, special. What were you going to say?
So no, let me ask you this in this hypothetical, because Tommy got me thinking about this with the AD stuff. I cannot get the Western Conference Finals out of my head when I'm thinking of AD. Now you're just talking about the greatest offensive player in the world, along with Steph, Nikola Jokic. Which one of these guys guards Jokic the best? AD, Draymond, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett. Like, I threw Ben Wallace out there. Like, which one of these guys guards Nikola Jokic the best? Because I think it's Duncan. I think it's pretty clear.
The version we just watched, just to be clear.
Yeah, because this is the peak version. I mean, Jokic put AD through the rim 4 straight games. So, like, which one of these? So it's obviously not AD, unless you think that he's putting these other guys through the rim even worse. Because I think it's pretty clearly Duncan, who's smarter, stronger, can play outside, inside. Doesn't have to guard a guard. Like, there's no Steph Curry out there. I think for as much as
what happens if you put the Spurs, like, hypothetically pick your Spurs team and put them against the Nuggets, and they have to guard Jokic, Murray pick and roll? Because that's my downside. Like, the issue with the Nuggets is they built a team perfectly around Jokic, like, because of his passing ability, where it's just like, I actually don't think the Lakers played bad defense on Jokic. I think they might have committed too much to him, and that's why Jamal Murray averaged 35 a game in that series. But it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, you're making him work. He's hitting some ridiculous shots. It's not like he's getting easy stuff.
That's how he is, though. I think he's always going to make those. I just think that, I mean, AD had no shot, even in isolation. Like, you could say even if he forced him into shots, he just had no chance. Jokic was stronger. He was quicker. He was better. I don't know. But again, I don't know. I think I'm lower on KG than you guys. But you guys threw out the Lakers point about what he did in the big stage. Like, that's true.
I think guarding Jokic is very similar to guarding Steph, in the sense of it's a 5-man job. And I think they exposed the fact that the Lakers had half of a championship team. Like, you could win a title with LeBron and AD, but you need the right perimeter pieces, and they didn't have them. You know, like, who's Austin Reeves guarding? Who's D'Lo guarding? You know, can those guys hit enough shots? I'm dancing around your question, because I do think Duncan might be the right answer. But I don't know.
I don't think there is a good answer. I really don't. I don't think anybody can stop Jokic, and I think that's the correct answer. I mean, if you're talking about having to guard the whole kind of system as they run it, it's probably Draymond or Garnett, just because of the versatility, the switchability. But I mean, we even saw by the end of last year's first round, I guess 2 years ago now, what Jokic was doing to Draymond, you know, and
no shot.
He forced him into the shot. Jokic is like, all right, I'm just going to hit everyone.
Yeah. The sounds coming out of the broadcast during Game 5 is Jokic was training like 12-foot spinning hook shots to end Game 5. People in that arena were terrified of what was going on. He's just that skilled.
I think the best way to guard him is probably you put a traditional big who knows how to actually play post defense, like a Looney, on him. And then you have your best defender playing help defense. And it's more about, like, turning him into a passer's cliche, or like make him a scorer's cliche, but like, it is kind of true. They're literally unbeatable if Jokic is able to dissect you with his passing. They might still beat you with him as a scorer, but it gives you a better shot if you can take everything else away and make them turnover prone.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the Sixers did that during the regular season. I think they put PJ on him, and they had Embiid just kind of roaming on the backside, and it gave him some issues, not any like ones that would not be solvable. But okay, so do you guys have one guy, a younger generation guy, so let's say under 23, who you think can enter this conversation? Because I would go, we talked about him a little bit early. I would think it's Evan Mobley. If you say Jaren Jackson Jr., I'm going to laugh because he fouls 8 times per 48 minutes. I think it's Mobley if there is one guy as of right now. I guess Wemby.
Well, there is. I was going to say there is one guy.
But
I'm going to go Wemby.
I'm such a Wemby hater. I'm such a Wemby hater.
Well, you got to give us. Tell us.
I think obviously he's an awesome prospect, but I think the injury concerns are super, super real. I think that the best prospect of all time stuff is super, super overwrought. Like we saw him.
Well, he's a 2K creative player. That's why.
Right. And he got like pushed around by like summer league bigs. I got pushed around by Kai Jones, who might not even be in the NBA next year with some of the stuff that he's doing online. And I just think like, what's his position on offense? He's not a good enough shot maker to really play the 4, unless he drastically improves as a shooter, which I could see. And he's not big enough or strong enough to play the 5. He can't set screens. I watched him set screens against summer league guards, and he was just whiffing on everything.
I think you're being a little too much of a hater, but I'll give you another. Absolutely. I'll give you another name, Chet.
Yeah, that was the only one. That's the only one left. Left.
I think it's those 3. It's Mobley, Chet, and Wemby. All have a chance to enter that conversation, but I think especially Chet and Wemby have a chance to be very, very injury prone. So at that height and that skinny, it's scary.
It's funny because Chet's injury was freakish, and there's a reason, you don't play on courts like that. I'm not actually as concerned about him, but like it's undeniable. Evan Mobley has not been injured. He's very durable at this stage of his career. So maybe that projects on. Those are the 3 though. Those are the 3 guys who all have like Garnett-esque characteristics. Like Anthony Davis was supposed to be the next Garnett, and in some ways he is, but it's like, if you're designing the perfect defensive player, it's like, give me Draymond, but 6'11", 7 foot with wingspan, which is essentially what they were.
Hey, I mean, there's another big. He was on Team USA.
Walker, Bobby Portis.
Tommy's got it. He's muted, but he's got it. Walker, Walker Kessler. A lot of blocks.
He is good. No way around that. We'll end it on that. Actually, I want to give one more shout out. Dennis Rodman. One of my more poignant childhood memories is like the 72 win Bulls and like that whole three-peat team. They were one of the most versatile defensive teams of all time with Pippen, Jordan, obviously both 6'6", 6'7" wings who could guard every position, and Rodman, who is essentially Draymond on defense. And I remember watching how dominant they were and not being able to, understand that it's an anomaly because I'm 13, 14 years old. And that's just what I knew, right? That's just what it's supposed to look like. But it took 20 plus years for a team to be able to build a defensive identity that mirrored that. And it made me really think about just how special having like Rodman, Pippen, those type of guys is. Like, end of the day, everyone's trying to build a team with that much defensive versatility and IQ, which requires having a bunch of wing size guys. And as we're seeing in the post Iguodala Warriors era, like it's not that easy to find that many guys who can do that sort of thing. So just want to give them that shout out.
And Andre Iguodala. So
I mean, in terms of wing defenders, he's absolutely top 10 all time.
Yeah. Now that you're talking about it, I just want to throw him in there because that's my favorite defender. That's my favorite defender of all time is Andre Iguodala. I love Draymond too, but Andre is, man, that guy is absolute art. Dude, absolute art on the perimeter.
Nothing more fun than an Andre swipe down. Yeah. Nothing like even this past season when he played 8 games. Nothing would get me more fired up.
And I thought they were the best. Games. It was you know what? I hope he comes back. I hope he plays another 8 games this season because why not? I don't know. I'm Iguodala's biggest fan.
He was still like plus 20 per 100 possessions when he played. It was crazy. It was crazy. Smartest dude in the world.
We're gonna end it. We're gonna end it on this.
All right.
who would do that, but they're frustrated a little bit, and we'll see what happens. Whether he decides to bring that up, he's not the type of guy who would do that, but they're frustrated a little bit.
I always think of that when I think of a swipe down now, just the camera catching him just yelling at his hands after he swiped down LeBron to end the series. Peak. All right, we'll end it there. Tommy, appreciate